Paul Washer, the late Ravi Zachariah, inspiring philosophy, John Piper, Franklin Graham, anyone who knows a scintilla about the gospel of Jesus Christ, any theologian who's deep, I got a question to ask you. Look at this. Jesus strongly preached, if you do not forgive others, God will unforgive you. God will forgive you, but if you do not forgive others, He'll take away His forgiveness. He won't forgive you. He says, pray, forgive us our trespasses, even as we forgive those who trespass against us. Well, here's my question. Why nowhere else in that New Testament, other than Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Peter never says you have to forgive to be forgiven? James never mentions it. Nobody ever. In fact, they mentioned Christians bickering and biting at one another, but not once do the apostles warn, if you don't forgive your fellow man, your fellow brother, you will not be forgiven. In fact, Paul inverts this theology, reverses it, and says, be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, not so you can be forgiven, but forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, have forgiven you. What's up with this? How come everybody, even the disciples, just blew off? Forgive others, and then you will be forgiven. How come they don't preach? If you've been forgiven by God, and you go out and refuse to forgive your fellow servant or fellow Christian, whatever, you'll lose your forgiveness with God. But something's not making sense. If you died with Jesus Christ on the cross, died to sin, and are resurrected in Christ, how can something as small as not forgiving somebody else jerk you out of your standing in Christ Jesus? Something's amiss. Now I want some freaking answers. This is what caused me to doubt. I believe in Jesus, but if He's real, why? Why this? Why did none of the apostles, especially Paul, mention you have to forgive to be forgiven? Only the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Not even in the Gospels of John. And talking about John, Polycarp was a disciple of John. He died a martyr's death. John raised him from the tender age of a child. Okay. And Polycarp quotes from several books in the New Testament. Here's a list of all of the books he quotes from. How come out of all the books, he lived to John, the beloved disciple of Christ? How come he never once quotes from the book of John? What's up with this? I wish he would, because it's making me doubt if... I don't know. Screw it, man. How come Polycarp never quotes once from John? If John wrote the Gospel of John, because John died first, not Polycarp. Polycarp was a freaking little child when John, the adult, took him under his wing. And he never heard of the Gospel of John. Folks, something's fucked up. Jesus, are you really real? I'm asking you, are you really real? Why this confusion?